back, friends, and happy belated New Year. This is the first show of 2019. That's right, Buddha and the Slut back on track for at least some monthly stories, and most of them are going to be freestyled. I think the ones that were pre-written, set to music before, are going to be part of an audiobook compilation later in the year, kind of a best of collection with some new stories, maybe 6 or 8 new ones. But as the regular tip, as the thing that's going to keep you guys engaged and hopefully coming back, I plan on telling some off-the-cuff stories for you. Again, maybe set to some music by Tobias Tinker, my uber-talented cousin. You should go check out his site at tobiastinker.com. You should also spread the good word about this show. But I'm not going to do it in a desperate way. If I sound a little bit angsty, it's because I am in pain. Yeah, I am actually recording this from my bed on Koh Yao Noi in southern Thailand. I'm pretty much fully reclined, and I've got the microphone balancing on my journal on my belly, so I'm wondering how that's going to sound. And my throat's a little constricted, so I won't give you those smooth, milky, honey tones right now. But I had an inclination, I had a bit of intuition regarding what this month's show should be about because of the parallels to something that happened in the past. You see, I just received some pretty awesome news. Really exciting, top secret, fun project stuff, which you'll hear about later in the year for sure, in a very big way. But that said, almost simultaneously to that goodness happening, I came down with an injury. I don't really come down with an injury. I caused it myself. I got angry in a situation and I needed to get the energy out of my body, and so I went to the Muay Thai gym, and like a stupid wannabe 20-year-old, I just started kicking and kicking and kicking until I couldn't kick the heavy bag anymore. And I felt okay for a while. It was good to get all that energy out. That's the great thing about anger for all you kids and snowflakes and folks who are afraid of this, quote, only negative emotion. Anger is fire if used correctly. It is fuel in the furnace. It drives you forward. It gets your ass out of apathy and gets your life in motion. And that's what it did for me. Of course, I expressed it in an unbridled fashion, and about 2 or 3 hours later, I bent down to pick something up, and it felt like someone just slid a pair of scissors into my lower spine and went plink. And I have been laid up pretty much since the last 3 days, which is worrisome. I've been getting shots in my butt to cortisone to reduce inflammation. I think it might be a slip disc, or at the very least, a very torn muscle. So send your warmth and your prayers and all that wonderful support. But as I'm here recovering and heavily medicated, there's a certain vulnerability that comes with such things. Profound vulnerability when you are weak and helpless and you are on your own with what has made you feel powerless or impotent, I might say. And it's kind of funny with the pain in my lower back the last few days. I can't help but, follow the natural thought stream of that word impotence and look down and realize, yeah, nothing's working here right now, and it's not gonna anytime soon because you are hurting. And that makes you feel kind of vulnerable too, especially as a man. And that got me to thinking about a moment in time, 15 years ago to be precise, when I was in Berlin visiting said cousin, said composer of the series, Tobias Tinker, visiting him to celebrate the good news about getting a $250,000 grant from the Canadian government to make the DVD upgrade 4-disc edition of my series Broken Saints. And just received the news, and I decided, hey, I'm going to go and see my cuz in Berlin and have a truly German Christmassy Christmas and celebrate. And also plan ahead because he was going to have to do a lot of work in the revamp. So I went to Germany and I brought some gifts, staying at their modest but lovely little flat in Charlottenburg, Berlin. And they surprised me with a wonderful, wonderful gift. A full spa day out in the countryside in East Germany. Now, we've joked before, I'm a lesbian in a man's body. So spa day for me sounded wonderful. Some pampering, facial massages, maybe a seaweed body wrap and a scrub, a little bit of sauna time. Bliss, right? Especially when you're talking like, minus 20 temperatures in the cold and dry German countryside. Bring it on. And that leads us to today's, or this month's, story, which I can't help but dub the full Monty. So talking about vulnerability, we hop on a train, center of the city, and go to the outskirts of town. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just thinking about East German history as we go there. So we get off at the train stop, and we walk about half a kilometer and crest a ridge, and suddenly there is this 1970s sci-fi Logan's Run reflective dome in the middle of like a barren field in the East German countryside. And my cousin's wife says, yep, there it is. There's the spa. I'm like, wow, this is different and strange and strangely cool. And we go through the front doors and they slide open, and we go from that crisp, dry, almost oppressive German winter air into a high-ceilinged, what felt almost like Roman opulence, moist-aired, marble-pillared sort of structure, with the attendants wearing, long white gowns and white outfits. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Logan's Run for sure. I'm checking people's palms for colored diamonds. That's how it was. So we get our passes. This is part of my treat. We get our passes and we go down to the change room. First interesting thing to note, the change rooms were co-ed. Now, yes, they had them basically separated by bafflers or by, thin metal, almost like cubicles. So everyone just changed in the same space. No problem there. I changed into my swimsuit and grabbed a towel, because the first section we were going to was the, the thermal springs, the thermal pool area, which was just stepping through the door into this playground. You got to understand why that dome structure was in place. It was almost like the mirrored panels from the outside were like one-way glass, and we could see the world through this arcing dome and this webwork, lattice work of beams, white beams, and this stunning, gorgeous, and quite large pool of natural hot spring water. And it felt incredible to immerse yourself in. And I'm looking at all the different people smiling and having their drinks and celebrating the day after Christmas, or recovering from the day after Christmas. As I explored all the nooks and crannies of this area, I went down the water slide like a 10-year-old, went outside into the crisp air, but stayed submerged in this little area you can swim down. It felt like a stream. And there were these pods, but I guess they looked almost like small street lamps, and that were open at the top, and they sent out these jets of ice-cold water to collide with your skin, while the rest of you was immersed in this very warm, almost bath-like hot spring water. Everything was blinding with the sun striking against the snow and the white surfaces. It was truly just a special, special time for the hour or two we were in there. So after I had relaxed, after I had finished off my time, there was another room you could swim to that was dark, but had almost like a, what do they call this, planetarium, Pink Floyd light shows happening on the ceiling, and there was extra salt in the water in that room, so you could lay back and you would just float on the water. It was like the Dead Sea. And I really got to let go. I really got to surrender. I felt vulnerable in the best possible way. And that brings us back to our theme of getting something good often has a price. Seemed to be a universal law. My cousin grabs me and says, okay, time to go to the steam room and the sauna section. And I'm like, okay, cool, looking forward to it. Because yeah, like bring a towel and bring a little ticket. Okay, followed him. We walked through a almost maze-like corridor, ended up at a door, buzz, and people are lined up, and the door opens up, and we're going through turnstiles, and they're checking our tickets. And I'm not seeing anything wrong, except suddenly I'm noticing that we're entering into an open area where nobody is wearing clothing. And my cousin's wife says, yeah, this is the nude area. And I went, okay, I have no issues with that. I can avert my gaze from bits and pieces, from twigs and berries, from, the prettier or uglier parts of people, as it were. I'm an old enough guy to react to all this maturely. No worries. So as my cousin steps through the turnstiles, he doffs his clothing just without a care in the world. That's always been him. That's something I admire so much about Tobias. I have no shame. See me, world, in all my magnificence. I've never been that guy. That's what I admire about him, other than his talent. And then his quite conservative Greek-Canadian wife did the same. And I was a little surprised. I'm like, okay, suddenly we've taken our relationship to a new level. This is interesting too. And she turns back to me as I grab a towel. I walk to the turnstile, hand my ticket, and I grab a towel from like a shelving unit in the wall. And she's like, Brooke, you got to take your shorts off. And I went, what? She's like, I said, this is the nude area. And I didn't know that it was mandatory. And I did a quick scan through the room, there was a bar and a pool and a sitting area and a cafeteria, all again with this dome ceiling and the lattice work of stuff and the light filtering through. And everyone is naked. And no one's wearing a towel around their waist. They've got the towel over their shoulder, in their hand. Naked as the day they were born. Flapping in the breeze, so to speak. Both sexes, really, when you think about it. And I remember freezing. I remember feeling dread fill my chest, because for me, that was a forced moment of vulnerability. The fear of judgment. Now, you might think that's silly and it shouldn't matter whatsoever, but let me tell you something. And it's funny in that it's personal and it's embarrassing, but it's true. If there were a Britannica Encyclopedia Volume G edition where you could flip to a page and it showed you grower, not shower, I would probably be the first listing in that entry. I'm sure many of you know the term shower, not a grower, grower, not a shower, whatever the case may be, but it's all about circulation and blood flow, and let me tell you, my hands and feet have always been pins and needles cold. I don't have a lot of blood flowing through my body unless it's absolutely necessary. And yes, I'm fine when it comes to the deed. I can hold my own in the bedroom. I am pleasantly average, let's say. But in the cold, with fear, without circulation running as it should in a human being, man, some ex-girlfriend said you're a statue of David in too many ways. That's probably the case. And I was suddenly terrified about feeling enough. And women say, oh, we have that same fear, of course, you know, with breasts and da-da-da. I'm sorry. I love you all. I love my female listeners, but it is not the same thing. All right? Yes, there are fertility judgments on both sides, but the thing is, we both have breasts. Yours just are more pronounced and produce milk. Ours are less pronounced with useless nipples, but they're still breasts. Men can still get breast cancer. If you've watched Archer, you know that's true. No, the comparative thing is genitals to genitals. When we've seen women nude in movies, no, you see the triangle in front, you see the general zone, you rarely see labia, you never see a clitoris, you never see full-on vulva of a woman in a movie. But you have seen many men, and I've read enough and heard enough and get the locker room giggles and have enough female friends to know, oh yes, the judgment happens. And this is Germany now. I'm in Germany, where, sure, it's like, oh, very free culture, you can take off your clothes and nude beaches everywhere, nudity is no big deal. Yes, it is also a culture that is well known for having men inject saline into their junk so they can swell it up and swagger around the locker room, letting people know that they are the alpha dog. It's something that men do. Women might never understand it, but it's part and parcel of who we are. And with that judgment, you also recognize that there are perceptions of power, of potency, of confidence, of what it means to be a man. So back to the story, I obviously comply. I slowly take off my shorts as I reach for the towel, as I hold the towel in front of myself, trying to be casual about it. Kick my shorts off, fold them, slide them into a shelving unit, and kind of just have this large white towel hovering around my waist, hovering around my belly button, and just hanging down front, and I just try to walk through casually. Now, my cousin's oblivious to these concerns. Again, he is just so incredibly comfortable with himself. My cousin's wife is a bit more empathetic, and she could tell that I was uncomfortable, so she's like, okay, what's the best solution to this? Let's go down to the steam rooms. They're dark. That sounds like a good place to start. So I grinned, bared it, literally, and followed her down some stone steps into a subterranean corridor with several large rooms hewn out of the rock that were ejecting steam and allowing a great group sweat to happen, which normally, for someone like me, would be bliss on every level. But we walked into the room, and there's maybe room enough to hold 25, 30 people sitting on a bench against the rock wall, which is, perspiring moisture from the heat that's gathered there. And almost all the bench area was taken by people of all shapes and colors and sizes. And everyone's so casual. They're sitting there with their legs spread and nothing covering themselves. They've got their towels behind their heads. No shame, no discomfort. And the men all seemed comfortable with themselves, either oblivious to any of the games of power, or the young guys were confident with what they had. I still can't help but flash back to, let's just put it straight, to a dark-skinned fellow with his young girlfriend. They were in their 20s. And that guy, when he stood up, he was knocking over toddlers with his tool, if you know what I'm saying. Seriously, he easily could have hung several towels for us. It was impressive, to say the least. And here was me, coming from the cold of the walk down, with all the fear in my body. When a man feels fear, everything retracts into himself. And people were looking at me like, why is he holding the towel like that? Why is he covering his lap when he's sitting down against the wall? I could feel the judgment. I have had my feelers out, my radar out for people's perceptions and potential threats for my entire life. And I was feeling the room loud and clear. My cousin sat on one side of me, my cousin's wife sat on the other. I sat there, tensing my jaw, totally uncomfortable. And the room kept filling with people, and we kept having to shove over, and I'm shoulder to shoulder, and everyone's just kind of... This was not a relaxed vibe. This was not a good feeling, and after 10 minutes, I guess my tension was being expressed so palpably that my cousin's wife said, "Oh, okay, I have an idea. Hey, Brooke, here's what you can do for us. Take this €5 and go upstairs, and could you get us a couple of Apfelsaft Schollers, okay? Apple juice with sparkling water. And easy enough, just Apfelsaft Scholler, ask for 3, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 3 for us. And then we'll meet you up there in like 10 minutes. Okay. And for a moment, there was relief. For a moment, as I stood, hey, you can watch my ass on the way out, that's no problem. And I let the towel hang over my arm in front of my body, and I didn't feel bad about it because I was going to be free. I was going to walk in that corridor and up those stairs, and there weren't many people, and I had a moment just to breathe and remind myself it was going to be okay. And then I step up into the main area, which is brighter now from the midday sun. All these people looming about the counter. I looked to see where the juice thing was, and I went and stood with a group of people there lined up. And everyone checks each other out. They all look. It just seems to be part of the culture. Oh, what do you have? Oh, yeah, okay, cool. You can see what I have. Okay, cool. Whatever. I know it's more Austrian, but it's just easier for me to say. And I'm standing in line with these mostly beautiful and very fit people and, some well-endowed men and some quite attractive women. And here's me hunched over trying my best to obscure any potential angle or view. And finally I get to the counter. And the guy behind the counter sitting there, classic Aryan specimen, good-looking guy, piercing blue eyes, well put together. He said, yeah, I had no idea what he said. And I was just like, try Apfelsaft Scholler, bitte. Was mit Gott, Apfelsaft Scholler. I'm like, I don't, what, orange saft? Yeah, was mit, how many? I didn't know what he was saying. I couldn't process whether he was asking for money, whether he was saying it wasn't available. I could see his impatience. I could see his annoyance. I could see he was looking at me like, oh, stupid American or English person who can't even speak our language and is too afraid to show himself with a towel in front. And I could see people smirking and looking at me with discomfort and feeling almost a little sorry for me. And that's when it happened. Such a profound feeling of vulnerability and powerlessness that the world caved in on me. I couldn't breathe. This was the first panic attack of my adult life, with my heart hammering in my chest, with my breathing short and strained, with every bit of sensory information flooding into my brain, every sound, every sight, every scent, the taste, everything in the air was conspiring to drive me mad as it screamed out its subtext. You don't belong here. You are not enough. All I could think to do in that moment, in that now hilarious and absurd George Costanza shrinkage moment, was to turn away from the counter, run from the room, and bolt outside. They had doors outside to the Turkish-style saunas. And I bolted outside into an area where old men were walking back and forth naked in the snow. And all I could think to do was just try to hide from view. And the only place I could do it was to run around the side of a boulder that was near that entrance and huddle down in the snow the day after Christmas with a towel around my shoulders, shivering with ice on my feet behind this rock, trying to hide from the view of people inside through those one-way glass windows. And then, what felt like hours later, but truly was only minutes, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my cousin's wife, Athanasia. She had somehow divined where I was, and she didn't judge. She didn't say much at all. She just knelt down with me in the snow and said, "It's a lot, isn't it?" And I broke the fuck down. I bawled like a newborn. I released easily a half an hour to an hour's worth of pent-up self-hatred and doubt. Do I matter? Am I worthy? All of it came out of me. I sobbed and sobbed until I was breathless and spent. And strangely, I felt a little better. My cousin eventually came outside, and they both kind of picked me up out of the snow, and they're like, "Just wrap a towel around your waist. It doesn't matter out here. Who the fuck cares if they judge you? Germans are more comfortable with that anyway." And we went into the Turkish sauna, and we spun towels over our heads and made the heat feel like it was going to sear our flesh off in strips. And I welcomed that pain. It was a pain I could make sense of. And all I could think from that moment on, for the few hours that remained at the spa, from the train ride home to Berlin, to the nights of indulgence with wine and beer and 150 proof Russian pear mash vodka, all I could think was that I had been laid bare, literally. And in that moment of intense vulnerability, the raw emotions that came to the surface felt like a spiritual revelation. And I thought about the project that had just gotten its approval, how it had been integral to my life and how I expressed myself for 3-4 years straight, and how this newfound level of vulnerability, of weakness, of authenticity, of laying oneself bare is what I had done in the project and what I was going to continue to do in the work that I made. And now here we are. I still haven't conquered that fear. I'm still not entirely comfortable with being nude in public. I still am careful and show caution around cold breezes and skinny dips in chilly water. But that vulnerability, that quote weakness unquote, is going to serve me well in what's coming. You'll see, people. You'll see. Because like it or not, whether it's in this life or in its final moments, the full Monty, or your version of it, is coming for us all. And all you can do is lay back and let it roll. And hope that it's warm out.